what's up guys, Paulo Munoz here. This video is all about PureRef and I'm going to show you how I've been using some of the most recent features, not just to collect images, but actually to document the process and take notes as I progress in a specific project. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. All right, so let's start from the beginning. This is the website where you can download PureRef. It's a pureref.com, and it is a free software, although you can also make a donation. And again, it's a fantastic software, not just to collect images, but as I'm going to show you, a great way to document your work and your progress. So let me go ahead and bring my PureRef board, which is this window that I have here. And one of the first improvements or new things that you can find in the new version of PureRef, version 2.0, is that now you can actually pin this window to be always on top. So you see, if I switch back to this browser, the window disappears. If I just use my Alt tab to go back, I have it in here. So if I hover over at the top of the interface, now we have this bar and we have this pin. So if I click this pin, now I can click on always on top. And that's pretty much it. So when I click on the browser, this is going to stay on the top. So this is one of the first things that I wanted to mention because it is pretty handy. Let's go ahead and remove that. And here at the back, or in the background, I have ZBrush. And this is just a quick sketch, very, very rough. I'm just going to get closer just to show you how rough this is, of a kind of like a mecha suit that I'm doing for this girl. And I'm just going to basically show you how I've been using the new features of PureRef. So let's go ahead and select this window. I'm going to hold Control F to go into full screen. And I have a bit of a mess here. I'll show you how to clean it up as well. And I have a few other projects that I want to cover, but let's go ahead and start with this. So I'm going to go ahead and select all these references from all these machines and pistons and hydraulics. And I'm going to hold the Control, Alt, and the left arrow on my keyboard so that they get unified in terms of the size. And then I'm going to hold Control and P on my keyboard to pack them. Now, this is a shortcut or a tool that was already in PureRef. So this has nothing to do with the new things. Let me just hold Control and left arrow just to organize them a little bit better. Now, once you have things organized here, the first feature I want to talk about are the grouping. So now if you hold Control and G, it will create a group. You see now it has this sort of like nice rounded window in the back. So now when I select any of these images or anywhere in this group, I can move the entire group. So this is fantastic for, let's say, if you have multiple reference images for different sections of whatever project you're working on. So I could just create a different group from all these pieces. Let's go ahead and hold Control, Shift, and G to ungroup all these images. And if I go ahead and select, let's say, these 4 bits and pieces. So this one is kind of like for a hydraulic claw in a way. This could be some interesting pistons and some hydraulics as well. So let's say these 3 are kind of like my cluster of images. So I'm going to select them all. Control Alt left again, just to make sure they're all uniform, and then Control P to pack them. Control left to make sure that they're nice aligned and there's no gaps in between. I'll do the same thing with this. Control left and up. And this one, Control left and up, just to make sure they're aligned. So I'm going to select all of these, Control G, then all of these, Control G, and all of these, and Control G. So now I have 3 groups, and I can easily move them together. So this is a really easy way to manipulate and arrange your images. You can also use some of the features that you would use with individual images. So Control Alt and left click allows you to scale the entire folder. Same thing here. So I'm just going to try to make them roughly the same size. And another thing that you can do is customize those folders. So I'm going to click on this one right here, and you see at the top I have this color picker. I'm going to go for a yellow, dark yellow, just so I have something as reference. Click Apply, and I can also unlock this group. By default is locked. That means that when I select it, it's going to grab the entire folder. So if I unlock this one, next time that I select something, I will just select the image inside. So I prefer to use the default, which is, if I select the group, lock it, and that way I group everything or move everything that is grouped. And if I want to move something inside or change something, let's say this one right here, I want to flip it around, I can double click it. Now I'm entering in this one. I can hold Alt, Shift, and left mouse just to flip this around. And I can do the same with the entire group. Right? So this is a pretty cool thing to do. Now, the other thing that I found really interesting is that you can also group things within groups. So this brings me to a couple of new features. So if I select the entire groups that I have, I can hold Control G, and this one I'm going to make it a white color. So again, I can click now and select this entire group, right? And if I want to move things inside, I can double click this and just move this group. Let's move this all around. And I can also add this in here. Right? So this is another image that I'm using as my reference or anatomical reference for that project I'm showing you. So if I put this one in here and I move the group, it is already inside. Now, I'll show you something else. If I double click on this one and move it away, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's out of the group. So to ungroup just this image from this entire group, I'm going to show you one of the new additions, which is the hierarchy. So if you press Ctrl and J on your keyboard, it brings in all the images and all the groups that you have. So you see, this is the group, this white group. And if I click on this one, this is the green group, and so on and so forth. So this anatomy ref, I'm just going to select it and drag it outside. So now it is outside of the group. So let's go ahead and rearrange these ones back again. So this is pretty handy because you can just move things in and out of different things. So let's just go ahead and select something like this, again, for a different project. I can go ahead and select all of these ones, and you see they've been selected in the outline, Ctrl G, and now they become the group. Now in here, you can double click the group and frame it. And if you click on the group text, you can name it. So let's call this one stylized grass, right? And this one right here, let's call it mech or something like that. Anyway, you can collapse them and, you know, all those fancy things. So Ctrl J to hide that away. But those are kind of like the main things that I want to cover in terms of the grouping. I think it's a really, really good way of organizing your, you know, kind of like nesting references within groups. And that way you can, you know, if I'm working on just the head, for instance, I will, you know, group things that have to do with like a helmet, for example, and that sort of thing. Now, another feature that is not new is the text, but I think it goes hand in hand with the new grouping system. So if I go ahead and hold Control and N, that will create a note, but now you have all these rich text and things that you can do with it. So if I type, let's say, helmet, I don't know, just to have something as my reference, I can go ahead and make it bold, and I'm just gonna go for a sort of yellowish color and apply it. Oops, let's type it again. All right, so now I have my helmet, and I can also change the background, so I can just select this and drag it. If you click and drag, that's how you select things in PureRef. So I'm going to have kind of like the same color as this group. And then Ctrl J to bring this in, select the helmet name, and I'm just going to drag that on top of the group. Let's call it helmet as well, just so that I know what I'm doing. All right, so let's drag and drop this one in there. So now this becomes part of this group, and I kind of like name them and have everything nicely organized. All right, so in practical terms, if I want to use some of these things as my reference, let's go ahead and hold Control and F to get out. And then I can sort of like work on my ZBrush concept, and then I have all these images here that I can sort of browse around and, you know, zoom in and out. Now, one thing that has also changed the way that I work with PureRef quite significantly, actually, is a new feature that supports the 3D Connection mouse. So I have this Space Mouse Wireless Pro, and this is from 3D Connection, and this device basically allows you to manipulate and move the 3D environment quite easily. So I can do the same sort of movement or navigation for ZBrush, and now PureRef also supports it, and a bunch of other software. So now back in ZBrush, if I just use my mouse, you see it's a pretty smooth way of rotate and zoom in and out. So I use this quite a bit, but now it is supported in PureRef. So if I select the PureRef window, I can do the same thing that I do in ZBrush. So I just need to click away. So this is ZBrush with the 3D space mouse, and this is PureRef now. So it's a pretty easy way to navigate. So let's say that I'm working on the anatomy, or just making sure that, you know, the proportions and all of this in the very rough sketch that I have here is working, which is usually what I use these anatomy references you know, for at this stage, just to make sure that the proportions and all of that is correct, even though this is kind of like a mech suit. So I'm going to select this one right here and get closer, right? And let's say something like this. I think it's, you know, it's all right. It's not perfect, but it's all right. It's getting there. But the feature that I want to show you is that PureRef now accepts animated GIFs. So this is actually a turntable that I created here in ZBrush. So you see that when I hover over or click on this image, I have these controllers here. So I can just go ahead and play this. And it's kind of like a nice reference to have there, and it's constantly playing while I can work on these things, right? So I can just keep sculpting, but I have these constantly moving, and you know, it might be distracting at some point, but I think it's a good reminder of the type of things that I need to look at when I'm, you know, sculpting. So this is probably one of the best, if not more useful tips that I'm going to give you in this tutorial, and I found that for me works quite well. Now, another great thing about this is that I can stop it and I can just go back and forth. Just if I want to, let's say, concentrate on the trapezius or something like that, right? I can just do this. So it's, you know, it's a pretty handy way of working with references, and the fact that you have access to all the frames within the GIF also allows you to work a lot faster. So let's, for example, click on this icon right here, and now it's going to display all the frames that are part of this animated GIF. So I can just move this like so, and go back to this one and say, okay, let's concentrate on the abdominals for whatever reason, right? So yeah, pretty handy stuff. So this is one of the ways that I've been using the animated GIFs. Now let's go ahead and hold Control and F to get back in here. Like I said, you can just click on play and leave it playing there. And this is kind of like how I have other animated GIFs in here. So let's keep talking about the animated GIFs, because I think other than just, you know, a nice feature, it can be very useful when you are documenting your process or even following a tutorial. Like if you're following this tutorial and taking notes or taking screenshots of this specific video, you can also turn those notes in animated GIFs and keep them for your reference as tutorials. So for example, if I select this section right here, these are a couple of GIFs, so I'm just going to play them. And these, by the way, these are part of a tip that I shared in a newsletter recently on how to create these sort of like tileable stylized textures using nanomesh and a few techniques in ZBrush. The reason I'm mentioning is because let's say that you are learning about something specific, or you're following a tutorial or a course or something like that. You can use PureRef to keep track of the things that you learn and tips and tricks. So what I have here is actually another GIF. So let's go ahead and stop this one because it's a little bit distracting at some points. So this one right here is an animated GIF. So what I've done, if I go ahead and play it, it's going to be like crazy, just showing a bunch of images. But the cool thing is that if I open up the GIF, I can sort of like have the different stages of that tutorial. So again, let's say that I'm following a specific, you know, process or a workflow, and I want to keep track of the different things that I do. So the first one is quick tileable roof tiles. That's kind of like what I'm doing. I can go next. And it's telling me, okay, I need to take a cylinder, cut a little bit of the pieces out, add a bit of thickness. Next, I can convert this into an IMM brush. Next, I can turn that IMM brush into a nanomesh and, you know, create the tiles. So this basically breaks down the different portions or parts of the tutorial so that I know how to create these things. So this is just to give you an idea of how you can document the process. Now, another really cool thing, which is another feature from PureRef. Let's go ahead and jump back in here. Let's work with this another GIF that I have here. So this is a backpack asset that I created during a live workshop for the Extra Mile course, which was pretty fun. So these are some references of the things that I use, like straps, the leather type, and all of that to incorporate in this asset. So let me go ahead and show you the asset first. All right, here we go. So here is the model in ZBrush. It already has subdivision levels, and it has like polygroups, all that good stuff, all the details. So this is kind of like the asset ready before I send it to Substance Painter for detailing. So at this point, this is where I can use these references as well, just to check certain things like, you know, the thickness of the falls, where to apply the falls. So if you look at the references in here, obviously depending on the type of material structure, I will create a different type of falls, for example. So in this one that has more of a fabric material, they're like concentrating kind of like around the stitching, and it's a little bit more pronounced that these ones that you know, it looks pretty strong, or like the structure of this material looks pretty sturdy. So these are the type of things that I'm looking in the references, and that's what I try to incorporate here in this backpack that has, you know, a bunch of different materials in it. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you use these references to work on something specific, you might want to do highlights or create little notes for yourself so that when you're actually sculpting things, you remember what you sort of like research or, you know, or figure out that you want to incorporate. So let's go back into full screen mode. Yeah. And let's say that I like, I don't know, some connections in here, some of the patterns for the stitching, right? Not the entire image. And again, this is something that has been part of PureRef. So I'm going to hold the C key once I have selected the image, and I'm going to crop it like so. So this is what I'm interested in from this image, not the entire thing. And let's say from this one, let's go for this pocket. So C and crop. All right, so I have these two pieces that, you know, I want to be able to use them as reference. But if I close the project now and come back in a week to work on it, I might not remember what I have this or why I crop these images in this way. So the new feature is that if you press Ctrl and D, it's going to bring in this drawing tool. So you can just go ahead and draw. And it has a couple of features here. So you can change here at the bottom the thickness line. So that's pretty straightforward, right? I think the middle one is probably the best. And you also can change the type of line. So if I click on the arrow, let's actually change the color as well to something a bit more prominent. Again, these are kind of like notes for myself. So I can just go ahead and draw like this and maybe like that, right? And then go back to, let's keep the color. Let's go back to the normal line, and I can say false, right? Or structure, right? So I can just draw notes for myself. So the next time that I come back to the project, I remember what I cropped and what I set up for myself so that I can keep working a little bit faster. Now, this is pretty cool. And if I press the escape to get out of this note taking, right? And I just go ahead and click on this image, you see that now this is on top of the drawing. If I click on the draw, it's kind of like its own image, right? So a couple of things that I want to suggest when you use the drawing tool, I'm going to delete this because it becomes kind of like a new image, is that if you want to use notes on a specific image, let's say this one right here, the best thing to do is select the image first, Control D next, so that you can add to it. So again, something, right? And then say, okay, this is what I need. Go ahead and click escape. And now this is attached to that image, right? So the drawing itself is an image, so you can just move that if you want to, Control Z to undo that. But if you select the image, it's kind of like part of that image because you selected the image first and then you draw on top of it. So this is a lot better than just, start drawing anywhere. This is the same thing that if you want to do an actual note, Control N, type something, and then maybe group it, hold Control and G to group it to this one. So now I have the entire group with my reference. So this is way more useful to me than just having a bunch of images that are sometimes good to look at or having as inspiration or reference. But if I actually need to start working on something, I want to have the ability to go back to my notes and remember, okay, this is what I collected this is what I want to refer to, whether it's material, structure, whatever it is, right? So just a couple of extras there. Now, if I press Control D again, I can also go ahead and click on the eraser, and then you can just go ahead and erase some of the notes. Pretty basic stuff. Anyway, so that is another fantastic addition to PureRef. And now let me just go ahead and show you how I would mix some of these features for reference purposes. So let's go ahead and select this GIF, and I'm going to pause it around there. Let's go back a little bit. So I have kind of like a 3/4 view, like so. And I'm going to click on these frames, and that way I see all the frames that are part of this animated GIF. Now, another cool thing about this new feature is that you can actually extract the frames from the GIF. So from this view, you can click and drag. And now I have this single image. This is not a GIF anymore. And let's go ahead and maybe play a little bit longer and stop it around there. Right? And let's drag this one out. And that's it. So now I have a couple of images that I extracted from that GIF. Let's go ahead and arrange them nicely. All right. And just to save a little bit of dead space, I'm going to select this one, press C, and crop it there. Same thing with this one. Okay, so these are my new reference that I could use, if I'm just like working on the backpack, and maybe this is kind of like the final asset. So I have all these indentations and damage, and the rope has the pattern and a few other things which I don't have in this version, or maybe I do. Yeah, I have some of them, but I don't have all of them, right? So let's say that I want to work on that. So I can just go ahead and create a node for myself. So I'm going to select this one, Control D, and I can just type add pattern. And this is kind of like a note for myself for the next time that I open the project, and these are the things that I need to work on. And just speaking from experience, sometimes I miss things because I have to cut a sculpting session in half, and then I forgot what I was working on. So this is one of the cool things that you can do to remember. And that's pretty much it. Those are the main 3 features. So the grouping system, the enhanced node taking, the animated GIF, and that you can extract pieces or frames from the animated GIF, and obviously the drawing tool. Now, before I forget, there's another way that I've been using the drawing tool, especially for my students in the Extra Mile and the courses that I have online. So, for example, if I'm working on, let's say, this character right here, or this maybe it is a work in progress from one of the students, what I would do is I'll take a screenshot here, and let's go ahead and paste it somewhere. And let's go ahead and crop this like so. Selected and Control D. So now I could potentially add a little bit of feedback in this model and share that in the community. So for instance, in terms of the practicality, maybe this tube should go at the back, right? And that way, when the arm sort of bends this way, right, is not gonna truncate the flow of whatever that is. So this is just thinking in terms of the practicality of having those tubes. Even though they look cool in there, it might be better that this tube, the blue one, goes at the back, right? So it doesn't do this and blocks the flow of whatever that that tube is used for. So things like that. Again, pretty simple stuff. It could also be things related with the anatomy, and just say, okay, I don't know, this could be a little bit thicker here. Maybe exaggerate a little bit of the of the figure here, or the silhouette, make it a little bit sharper. So this is a very simple thing, I know, but I just wanted to show you not only what the feature is, or like the new feature, but also how I've been using it, just to give you some ideas on how you can also use it yourself. So yeah, definitely a feature that you can use to take notes for yourself. All right, so let's just go ahead and press escape. One extra tip, this is something that I cover as well in the previous video of PureRef, but something else that you can do is hold Control, Shift, Alt, and C, and that will bring the kind of like the cropping tool, just in case, you know, let's actually go back into one of these ones, this one right here. Let's say that you forgot something, or maybe you think, I actually want to use the entire frame or the entire part of this reference. You can hold Control, Alt, Shift, and C, and bring this cropping window so you can readjust it, right? So it doesn't mean that once you crop an image, let's press Enter, doesn't mean that when you crop an image, it is completely lost. You actually just hide portions of it. So I can just go back and press C and work on that one. In fact, you can hold Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And then from this one, which is an exact copy of this one, hold Control, Shift, Alt, and C, and then just concentrate on another area, like so, right? So now you have the label and this sort of like close up to to the zippers. So that is pretty much it. And I didn't mention any of these project, but again, it's just kind of like collecting references. I think what I wanted to show you is that you can color the groups and keep everything within the palette and theme. So that's pretty, you know, simple. This is an actual animated GIF. And again, it's just another way for me to keep references of how to create this type of stylized grass. So this is a VDM brush that I created. This is in response to a question to one of my students that want to create a stylized grass for a statue. So this is a simple way of creating these type of things. And if I collect them all into this PureRef document, next time that I want to do something like this, or if I have a project that is related to this type of style, I have the reference in here, right? I have the way that I created these grasses. So many different ways of using PureRef. Hopefully this gives you slightly different ideas of what to use it for or how to use it. All right, so that's about it. And if you're interested in knowing how to actually manipulate the images within PureRef, organize them, and create your mood boards, I have another video in the channel that hopefully will help with that. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Cheers.